Our bodies come in different shapes and sizes, so doesn't it make sense that our weight loss plan should too? Noom builds a personal plan that factors in dietary restrictions, medical issues, and other personal needs so your plan works for you. One of the things I love about Noom is that it doesn't feel restrictive. Instead of focusing on what you can't eat, it helps you develop a healthier relationship with food. You can still enjoy your favorite treats in moderation, which makes it a sustainable approach that I can actually stick to. If you're looking for a personalized weight loss program that actually works, I highly recommend giving Noom a try. It's a program that's helped me achieve my goals and feel better than ever. Stay focused on what's important to you with Noom's psychology and biology-based approach. Sign up for your trial today at Noom.com. That's Noom.com. Go check out Noom today.
All righty. Okay, so we're back with Cindy Bertrand Flores, and we're diving deep into deadly roots. We went really deep last week. Cindy wasn't on, but I told her about it. It was kind of crazy, going all the way back to Adam and Eve and all the things that you could possibly think where evil has been conjured up from, the beginning of evil. But this week, we're kind of going back onto the serial killer train, but this time we're focusing on the females. And I was really surprised at the list that you put together of, obviously there's a lot of them that have any connection to the Mayflower, but the amount of connections they have just overall, you found some names here I've never heard before.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Some of them are older. Some are older than the first seven.
Exactly. I had to do some research on there. So tell me a little bit about how you kind of accumulated this list and what commonalities do these women have in common?
So Diane Downs was the first one. I don't know. I guess that movie with Farrah Fawcett, Small Sacrifices, stuck in my head. So when I was making the killer tree, and I had Charles Manson, I had Jeffrey Dahmer, and John Wayne Gacy. I think she was the fourth person that I added to the tree. I was like, oh, let's do Diane Downs because I wanted to add a woman. Some people recommend, like my brother would be like, hey, how about this person? Some people say, have you looked into females? At one point I was like, let's see mothers who kill their children, if there's any connection. And there was to some. So I had like, oh, let's add Casey Anthony to the tree list. And then I was like, what about Jodi Arias? Let's see what she's got. What connection she might have. And considering she's half Hispanic, I was actually surprised to find that she was a Mayflower descent. Wait, does Jodi Arias?
I don't think she does. Not Jodi Arias.
Yeah. Jodi Arias is a Mayflower.
Well, maybe that's on your new list. I have your old list.
You should have. You should have the right one.
That's okay. You can just talk us through it here. All right. Well, sure. Let's go to the top. I mean, obviously Diane Downs. We've talked about her before.
Yeah. She killed her. She shot her 3 children, and one died, and then one was paralyzed, and then that girl survived, but was mute for a long time until she eventually just fessed up, like said it in the trial. She did it.
Yeah.
Eileen Wuornos, who's related to a lot of the serial killers. She's in the tree. She's been in the tree quite some time. Those are probably my first 2 females that I added to the tree, is Diane Downs and Eileen.
And are they both related to Mayflower?
Diane Downs is. Eileen Wuornos is not. So Eileen Wuornos is going to be part of the other northern group of the Massachusetts, Connecticut. She's got a lot of Connecticut. So remember how we have 2 northern groups. So she's in the second northern group. She does not have Mayflower, but she does have a lot of those killer lines on the other parts of the northern group. Now, Jane Toppan, she's an older one, like Belle Guinness type era.
Yeah. Jolly Jane, they called her.
Right. And I think she was in recent Europe, if I recall. Jane Toppan. I'd have to look again, but
but she committed 12 murders between 1895 and 1901, but she confessed to like 31.
So she's a female serial killer. Is she the first female serial killer?
No, she's actually not. That person is on this list. That's Belle Guinness. She's considered the first female. But Jolly Jane was a nurse, and she targeted patients and family members. Which was really interesting. Just overall, when I started doing a thumbnail sketch research of all these women killers, majority of their their victims are kids and children, and
People that are unable, like nurses that do it,
yep,
or mothers doing it.
yeah.
Like
So
the
children
caregiver.
and elderly people and the
Yeah.
infirmed,
Yeah.
which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah.
You know,
Weak people who couldn't fight back.
Yeah. And that makes sense, right? I mean, the men are going out there stalking their victims. Now, Eileen Warnos is a whole other ball of wax, but the guys probably deserved it because they were, anyway, whatever. She killed those ones. But as for the rest of them, the majority of them, it was people that couldn't do it, or they were part of a tag team. So the guy was doing like more than likely the heavier lifting, like
mm-hmm.
Carol Mary Bundy, who is with Douglas Clark, right?
Douglas Clark, yeah, yeah,
Right. The Sunset Strip Killers.
yep,
And she's got Canadian roots, so, and I think Irish as well.
mm-hmm.
And then like Lizzie Borden, of course, you had to add. You can't add all these older killers and not add Lizzie Borden, whether
Yep.
she did it or didn't do it. She did it.
And that's I remember you told us that Laura Brand is related to her.
Laura Brand, yeah, and Lizzie Borden has the Morse line. There's actually a lot of killers on the Morse line. So not only Lizzie, but her uncle, just in case somebody was like, what if the uncle did it? Well, the uncle's on that same line, so maybe.
Yeah.
Who was her uncle?
He was visiting them at the time. He was out for the day, and then the murders took place, and then he came by after. Oh, whatever happened, we don't know, and then the whole trial ensued.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then I've got Carla Homolka. She's Canadian. That's the other half of the Ken and Barbie killers. So Paul Bernardo and Carla Homolka. That was disgusting. Their first kill was her sister. They were raping her. They drugged her. They were raping her because because Paul Bernardo wanted to have sex with her with Carla. And anyway, they ended up, I don't know if they gave her too much drugs and she OD'd. So that was their first kill. And then they continued to kill after that. So, and she got let out of jail a long time ago, changed her name. She's got her kids were in schools, and parents at the schools were like, why, So she goes out, after getting out of jail, remarries and has kids.
Mm-hmm.
Parents in the neighborhood were not happy about that.
Yeah.
So,
and then
he's still in jail.
Yeah, Mary Beth Tinning. I mean, she actually just got released in 2018. She's out.
They released her?
Well, she's 82, but she murdered her children. Another one that murdered her children.
Mm-hmm. 9 children.
9.
She murdered 9 children.
She went to jail for killing the 4-month-old, and then they believe that she also killed the other 8 over the course of 14 years.
That's horrible.
Yeah. So
a lot of these women kill their own children.
Yeah.
Yeah. The next one on the list, Susan Smith. She's on the list.
Yeah.
Also, and so the ones that don't have Mayflower ties tend to either be in the other group of killers. Not all their trees are finished, or they have those southern roots. Southern roots, like I said, even with the males, it's a different type of a tree. The pattern is there with the northern roots killers. It's a little bit different for southern roots. They don't have that recent Europe. That they tend to not have that New York because they've stayed south. Virginia.
Yeah, but Mary Beth, she's tending. She has a Mayflower connection.
She does. Yeah.
Who is she related to on the Mayflower? What's her?
She's on the Hopkins line. She's related to Cindy. She's got multiple Hopkins lines. So you got a new cousin.
The woman who killed 9 children is related to the Hopkins line.
Mm-hmm. I'm feeling fuller for her. I mean, it sounds pretty crazy, but I'm still thinking. I only just started her tree the other day. I know she's related to potentially Gypsy Rose, so I will get into that. So Gypsy Rose also in the tree. And then we've got, so I said Susan Smith, Dorothy Puente, who was a nurse. Yeah. So there's another one who killed elderly people.
Yeah, she was a nurse in a boarding house.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently she murdered elderly and mentally disabled people.
That's horrible.
For their Social Security checks.
I mean, that's really interesting if you look at that for a second. The women are killing children, infants, and elderly or disabled people because they're weak. And the men are stalking and hunting their victims.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Definitely.
You would think, though, with women that they would not be able to kill a child.
Oh, your own child, for crying out loud, like, especially none of them.
And it's usually their own children. I mean, like Lori Vallow. I mean, she killed her children. Susan Smith, you know,
Diane
and
Downs,
yeah,
Casey Anthony.
yeah, Mary Beth Tinning.
Mm-hmm. Ashley Parmalee.
Yep,
I
that's
haven't
another one.
finished her. I haven't found info for her grandparents. I don't know who Amy Dugan is, but it seems like she probably did the same thing.
I found out some information about her because she comes up under a different name.
Yeah,
This is,
I sometimes with their maiden name.
yeah, so it's another one, a nursing home proprietor.
Okay.
5 victims that they know of by poisoning. They believe there's more.
Mm-hmm.
But this is like, this is all.
Which is also, I think, how some of the other nurses killed their victims by poisoning.
Yeah.
That's interesting, actually. The men are doing that. They got their hands in there. They're,
they're getting up close and personal. Yeah.
Not Eileen Warner. She's like, pow, pow.
Which is interesting because they said that, one of the driving forces of serial killer men is testosterone. And,
Really?
obviously, yeah. So it's interesting now these women, I mean, there's no testosterone, but they're doing some really vicious murders. I mean, to kill kids is horrible.
And disabled people and elderly people. All of it's awful.
Yeah. And I mean, some would be for financial gain, but.
Well, yeah, the Amy Dugan, she was doing it.
Same with Dorothea Puente. Same thing, right?
Yeah.
Both that nurse thing and now we've got Belle Guinness, so that's going to be in one of the older. She was actually born in Norway, so she can't. She's on the list. So
yeah,
I don't know.
She's considered labeled the first female serial killer.
And what did she do?
She reported. I can't remember the amount, but she's had over 40 victims. Yeah, let me just look that up.
1800s. This woman was living.
Mm-hmm.
She's imagine. Female serial killer.
That's they dubbed her that. Where is it? The Norwegian American serial killer she said she was also active in Illinois and Indiana between 1884 to 1908. Killed at least
1884. That's kind of around the time that H.H. Holmes was doing his same thing.
Oh, she would entice men to her property, her rural property, and then she would kill them from then.
So that's interesting. That one killed men. Eileen Warnos killed men as well.
Are they related?
No, because Belle Guinness was born in Norway, so they got that. She's got that. There's no way to find out. That's all recent.
I mean, based on her pictures, I don't know how she was able to lure men.
Because the 1800s, they were like, "I'll take anything you got."
Exactly.
You willing to give it? I'm ready.
She must have had a good way of seducing them with her something else. I don't know, but definitely.
Yeah.
Said she has her as one of the most prolific female serial killers in history.
Mm-hmm. There are men who haven't even taken care of 40, but she took care of 40 dudes. Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Now I've got Amelia Hobley. Oh, I don't know. There's probably somebody told me to add to the tree. She's in there.
Amelia who? Dyer?
Hobley.
Oh, Hobley. I didn't look her up.
Let me see. What I can find on Amelia Hobley. She's in the tree. And Amelia, she was probably like a recent killer or something. That might be why she's in the tree.
No, she's older. She's like in
Amelia Dreyer.
1838 out of she was in London.
Oh, okay, so that's why. So then she's not going to tie into the rest of them, but
no,
another female serial killer that somebody asked
another female in the Victorian era.
Yeah, so there's a few from the Victorian era.
Yeah.
I wonder how she
a trained nurse, and she was a widower.
Yeah, so another nurse. So we have another nurse, right?
And she turned to baby farming, the practice of adopting unwanted infants in exchange for money to support herself.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that might be why they asked. I think somebody else asked me to look into like the baby train people who started the baby train. Anyway.
Yeah.
I think there's a girl involved with that too.
Because of her, they enacted stricter child protection laws.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's sick and twisted. Like,
I know.
Well, imagine the streets of London. And that's funny because that's really where it kicks off in that the H.H. Holmes era, the later, well, at least that's recorded, right?
Mm-hmm.
1800s, because before that it would have been wars and stuff, but there's really nobody's ever talked about early 1800s serial killers. It's
And
H.H.
those,
Holmes was one of the first. He wasn't the first.
yeah. But like those types of murders, I mean, I'm sure they didn't know whether or not they killed the babies or not. They could do
Right.
there's a variety of ways. It's not like an investigation,
Mm-hmm.
unless someone saw her.
Right.
And the
Yeah.
whole nurse thing, that's friggin' scary.
It is, especially if you're, yeah.
I mean, I don't
That's
know. I don't know
horrifying.
if you've ever been in a hospital, but
Yeah.
2 years ago I was in a hospital for like 3 days, and like you don't even know who's coming into your room because you're constantly drifting in and out of sleep. You're on, IVs. They have changed. You don't know what they're putting in those tubes.
Yeah, it's true.
Very easily take you out.
That's horrible.
But a lot of them are nurses.
Yeah, a lot. We have to do a tally, but a lot of it's like a combo. So it looks like there's like 3 groups of people. So we've got our nurses, and we've got our baby killers, and then there are the women who tended to men, and there weren't that many of those ones who killed the guys.
Yeah.
So it looks like, just by looking at it, like 3 groups of female killers. So that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean the other one that I thought was really interesting was I can't pronounce her first name, Juana Barraza.
Juana Barraza, yeah. So I got a couple Mexican killers in the tree, females. Juana Barraza hasn't been tied yet to the other ones. She's got a lot of indigenous roots.
Yeah.
What did she do? What do you got on
She
her?
killed 16 elderly women, and that they know of. Yeah, elderly women. And
she was a nurse?
She wasn't a nurse. You know what she was? She was a former pro wrestler.
Well, I remember that, but I was like, what are you killing old women for? But again, like you were saying, the infirm and
so just either she
probably was taking their money.
Yeah. Wow.
So let's go back for a second. So which ones of these are related to each other?
Okay, that's a whole other. Well, hang on. Let's finish the names on the list, and then
Yeah.
I can go open up. So we've got Delfina Torres, or Delfina Gonzalez.
Yeah.
Her and her sisters owned a brothel in Mexico, and they were killing. Did you pull them up at all?
No, I didn't pull those up.
So they owned a
Which
brothel.
one is that again? What's her name? Delfina Torres?
Delfina Torres, but that might be her maiden name. Delfina Gonzalez. Her and her sisters, they owned a brothel. Their father used to molest them or whatever, and then they ended up owning a brothel. And I imagine they killed their patrons. You find anything?
I'm finding a lot of Delfina Torres.
Maybe Delfina Gonzalez.
Hold on.
It's just because she went by one name, but it's not her name.
Hold on.
Gonzalez. I'll try again. Killers.
Gonzalez. Yeah, you said you went to Gonzalez.
Yeah. So Delfina and Maria de Jesus Gonzalez.
Mm-hmm.
Got
quite a few names.
And that's the thing. But the thing is that their dad, well, he was using the Gonzalez name, even though it wasn't his. It was actually Torres.
Sorry, I was trying to see.
Their father worked as a local police officer, and he was strict or whatever.
They would kidnap young girls.
Oh, and because they owned a brothel, that's probably how they collected them.
Oh wow!
91 people.
Yeah,
They killed 91 people.
Yeah,
that's a lot. So they're on the list, and they actually are. Let me pull up the tree. I believe they are related to. Let's just check. Delfina Torres. Because I know I have a group of Mexican killers that are related to each other.
Yep.
And I think they're on that line. Delfina. No. Let me see who are the Mexican killers. Alonzo.
Yolanda
Garza. Come on. Alonzo de Garza. I don't know. I didn't link their. I don't know. Their names are not on the list. I can't see it. But
the other one, another Latino, Yolanda Saldivar.
Right, that's the one who killed Selena, the singer.
Yeah.
Now her tree's not finished. I wasn't able to find like grandparent info. or no info pad yet beyond the parents. So,
Mm-hmm.
and then Nancy Ward, I don't know what she did, but her tree's not finished. Who's Nancy Ward? Did anybody look it up?
Nancy
People
Ward.
just tell me these names, and I'm like,
I had time to look up a bunch of them.
Nancy
my
Ward.
brother gives me like the older one, like older names. Bell Guinness. He gave me all those ones. So, Nancy Ward. And it's interesting because I have three Ward males, the father, son, and stepson that are killers. Oops, I was going to get out
Nancy
of that.
Ward. The only Nancy Ward I'm getting looks like
Maybe she's
she's
one of those
Cherokee.
ones who goes,
She was Cherokee.
That's not the same Nancy
No.
Ward.
Nancy Ward killer. I think she was older. Nancy Ward. Yeah,
They
I
have her
see.
as a Cherokee warrior diplomat.
Yeah, that's.
But she's not a killer. She's not a killer. Different one.
No,
So
the
maybe we're
person is.
confusing. Maybe we're confusing it.
It might be her. You know how killers have like a real name and then the name that they go by, like
Right.
Bell Guinness. That's probably what it is. But anyways, that's fine. Let's move on to the next one, which is Carly Gregg. Yeah, so that was that girl recently who shot her mom in the face and then she shot her stepdad. I think she's having a thing with her stepdad, but hey, what? Maybe. She's in the tree. I jumped on that one. And then Gypsy Rose and Casey Anthony are in the tree as well.
Interesting.
Oh yeah, she's currently she's looking for a new trial.
Yeah. Let's see. So
Teen murder. Teen murder.
Oh yeah, she's young, 15 years old.
14 when she killed her mom.
14, right. And that happened just this past April that she killed her.
Wow.
Now, what do we have? Okay, let me see. So Carly Gregg is on the Kimball line as far as one of those heavy lines with a lot of killers.
Mm-hmm.
So she's related to Richard Chase, the vampire killer.
Yep.
Brendan Dassey, Chad Daybell, Hayden and Bradfield Clark, William Suff. This is the line that has 6 cannibals.
Wow.
Eileen Warnos. So there's 2 girls on that line. H.H. Holmes, Gary Leon Ridgway, Albert Fish, David Carpenter, Earl Nelson, Stephen Avery.
That's a
the
big
Donner
list.
Party mother. Did they say Earl Nelson? Yeah, let me see if Edmund Kemper. Did I add his name yet?
No.
Paul Bernardo. And yeah, that's a lot of killers on that line.
Yeah.
And that's when Carly Gregg's on. I think that's her heaviest as far as killer relations.
That's a lot.
That there are some family lines. That's got the second highest amount of killers. It's like 15, I think.
For Carly Gregg?
The Kimball line and the Fuller line are our top 2 for all the killers.
Yeah.
That one's got 2 females on it. So yeah, and for her it's, and I don't think I finished her tree. But for her it's the Kimball line that's the heavy demonically cursed line that was traveling in the bloodlines.
Mm-hmm.
So she got the demons in her, most definitely. Who does that? Who shoots their mother in the face? And then like point blank, and she had that weird, giggling in the courtroom type stuff. I wasn't watching it.
Yeah, no, I'm looking at pictures and she's like a full range of emotions. It's like she's laughing, she's crying, she's stoic.
Her stepdad was like saying to her, "I love you," or something. He mouthed "I love you" to her. She shot him too. I think she was diddling the stepdad. I think he was the reason that she did it, and he probably.
You think so? Yeah. I don't know enough about that case other than just that I've seen the videos.
Yeah, she looks seriously mentally ill.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, they say that she's bipolar, but I'll stop. I blame the stepfather for all of it, but that's just me.
Okay.
And then let's see. So now Gypsy Rose on the nap line. Let's see. I got women on the nap line. We got Eileen Warnos on the nap line, as well as Mary Beth Rowe, which we talked about, the one who killed her 14 kids. And then potentially Gypsy Rose. So Gypsy Rose has naps in her tree. And I just haven't been able to confirm.
She has what in her tree? She has gaps?
The last Knapp, Knapp. It's a surname.
The Knapps.
Right, Knapp.
The Knapp family.
Don't take Knapp.
Oh, the Knapp. I thought you said Knapp.
They all descend from Robert Knapp. So they're also related to Joseph James D'Angelo, Mark Scott Thornton, Dana Ewell, Timothy Burkhart, Dylan Bennett Klebold. So that was the guy we talked about the other week about
the mass killings.
Yeah. What do you call it? Columbine. And then Hayden and Bradfield Clark, Ethan Crumbly. So that's the line. We have two of the
Columbine's guys.
High school. No, that guy isn't one of the other high schoolers.
Yeah, one of high school shooters.
And then William Suff is on that line as well.
William Suff's all over the place.
So that line's got a couple of girls, and I believe the Fuller line has them as well. Two, right? I think it's Diane Downs. My eyesight. Okay, so as far as girls on that line, we've got Casey Anthony on the Fuller line and Diane Downs. So those are the two girls on the Fuller line.
Wow.
And the list of killers on that is 20 plus. We have like almost 25 killers, I think, on that line. Like the heavy ones. So that's your John Wayne Gacy's, Todd Colehap, Patrick Nicholas, Gary Heidnick, Jamie Fuller, Thomas Fuller, Eric Harris, Patrick Kearney, Robert Burdella, Edmund Kemper, Jack Fuller Jr. I mean, the list goes on. We got John Wayne Gacy, Jeffrey Dahmer, Charles Manson, H.H. Holmes, Otis Toole. You know, they're all on that line. Like that's
wow, that's a lot.
Casey Anthony is related to John Wayne Gacy.
Yes.
Yeah, and Diane Downs on that line. That line is really, really heavy as far as killers are concerned.
Wow.
Now we've got two females who killed their kids on the same line. Which is what I was looking for. I'm looking on Mary Beth Rowe to see if she's a Fuller, because we've already got two who killed their kids on that line. That's like that's what I'm looking at right now. I'm looking at the females. What's the connection? Is there a line where, like how we have 6 cannibals on one line? Is there a line where we're going to have 5 or 6 females who killed their kids? You know, infanticide.
Yeah.
It's sad. And then recently, I heard about this morning, and I haven't looked into it, but what I was telling you before we started was that a girl, younger, had a child, had a boyfriend. The child wasn't from the boyfriend; he was from somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
She was trying to take a bath. She was frustrated with the kid. She was texting him, "You better get back here soon, or something's going to happen to the baby." She ends up drowning the kid in the tub, and he gets back to the hotel, and they're trying to figure, okay, well, we won't tell anybody when they try to cover it up. Then they took a break to have sex in the bed, in the hotel bed, with a dead baby floating in the tub. And yeah, that's a graphic.
That is so horrifying.
I just don't understand.
I just don't get it. I mean, I understand there's mental illness, but this kind of stuff, I just never am going to wrap my mind around.
Well, I understand, like, there's this whole, the postpartum depression with, with we've seen that's documented with women, but when it's more than one child, that's just crazy. And then the Lori Vallow thing is just that to me.
They had demons in them. She had to kill them. It's like,
that's like, another level.
Oh my God.
That goes back to last week's podcast talking about the origins of evil. I mean, that's someone who's really summoning up the origins of evil when they're basically casting their children as demons.
And they were Mormons, so this Chad Daybell, I know what the Mormons believe, but the fact of the matter is, I know they have an alternate Bible, but God says, through Jesus, right? And they claim that they believe in Jesus, so you can cast demons out. Jesus said, cast them out. So if your children had demons, all you got to do is cast them out. Why you got to kill them?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think he was convincing all of them that this person's got demons, so we have to kill them. What? You know what I mean? It's like, no, man, you just need Jesus. You're good.
Exactly.
A lot of people walking around with demons in them. So
yeah, and I don't think that has anything to do with the Mormon religion. That's just someone who's just crazy.
Wacko, right?
Crazy. And just using the religion as a crutch to say why they have to do it. To me, that doesn't make any sense.
Well, that's going to be your cult leaders. I got cult leaders in the tree too.
Yeah.
Which ones on this list are Mayflower descendants?
So we've got those two. They descend from Fuller. So Diane Downs and
Casey Anthony.
And then that one, Mary Beth Rowe Tinning. She's a Mayflower. She's on the Hopkins line several times.
My family line. Wonderful.
Right. Casey Anthony and Diane Downs, and then Jodi Arias. And Jodi Arias has a few, I believe. Let me look. I think she's on the Rogers line. Jodi Arias. So she's on the Rogers line, the Mayflower Rogers line, as well as the Howland line. So she's got Rogers and Howland. So she's got two Mayflower
Mhm.
ties. She's related to Ted Bundy. Richard Hoffman, oh yeah, we can't even talk about him. This the grandfather whose grandson said he was the Zodiac. But Ted Bundy, and then she's related to David Hendricks, John Wayne Gacy, Gary Heidnick, Larry Bittaker, David Hendricks, Stephen Avery, Brendan Dassey, Mark Scott Thornton, Hayden and Radfield Clark. She's actually double related to Ted Bundy. She's on the Rogers line,
Jodi Arias is double related to Tim Bundy.
double related to Ted Bundy because he's on the Howland line as well, same as her on the Rogers line. Yeah.
No,
So
she's got prison with no parole, so she's in there for life.
yeah.
It's been
And
16 years since that's happened. It doesn't seem that long.
has it been 16?
16 years.
Wow. It really doesn't seem like that long. It kind of looks like yesterday. I know that she's half Mexican. Her father was.
Yep.
So I was so think about this. She's gonna have that same pattern. You know how we have recent Europe? Well, she's got the recent Mexico. Like it's out of the country. Sometimes it's recent Canada for these people. But it's like when I say like they recently had ancestors not from the US, somewhere else, Canada, Mexico, most of the time it's Europe. But that same pattern follows. So she has the pattern as well, because she's got that Mexico thing. And I did not build out her dad's side of the tree. I think it's her dad's side that's got the Mexican, but it likely would tie in to the other. I swear those Gonzalez girls are on that, along with the guy who inspired Hannibal Lecter to Alonso de la Garza. I don't know why it's not
Yeah.
written there. I have to dig for it. I might have his name under something different, or maybe under the woman. Anyway,
Yeah.
it might be under Trevino. It might be under Trevino. So many people in the tree. I have to remember who's in the tree. I think it might be under Juana Trevino. That might be why.
Like I'm always amazed how you can spit this stuff out so quickly.
I know. So the rest of these women are related to one another, or what?
Some of them are related to each other. It was Rodrigo Alcala and Alfredo Bali Trevino that are related on the Trevino line. Anyway, okay, so back to the women. Then not all of their trees are finished. So we've got Jodi Arias and we got Eileen Warnos, and whichever girl she was tied to. We got Jodi Arias did not have a girl tie yet. We got the Casey Anthony Diane Downs connection. And then I don't know, like I know that Mary, what's her name?
Mary Beth Rotinning.
No, I was thinking Bundy. Carol Bundy.
Oh, Carol
Mary Bundy.
Carol Bundy. We just go by Carol Bundy.
Yeah, and that's not even her name. So in the tree, it's one thing, and then what name she went by. Her name is not Bundy. She married a Bundy.
Oh, so
I know somebody asked me to look to see if she was married to related to Ted Bundy, which biologically she wouldn't have been anyway.
Yeah, and I know she wasn't related to Bundy, but yeah, that was her husband's name, last name.
Right, but she's Canadian. She is related, fourth or fifth cousins to the highway killer, freeway killer. There's a guy. He's a freeway killer. Oh, it's on my computer. Let me look. It's right here. Let me see. Do I have it up? What's his name?
I think she also killed her husband, Bundy.
She killed her husband?
Yeah.
Oh wow. What's the guy's name? What's all my Mayflower killers? Canadian. No, not that guy. No, he's like American. Nope, not that guy. William Bonin. I believe it's William Bonin. He was a freeway killer.
Freeway killer.
I think they're fifth cousins. And I think that they're both American, and their connection's Canadian.
Yeah.
So so William Bonin and Carol Mary Bundy, they're fourth or fifth cousins. And it's a French connection, and William Bonin, do we know? Is he American? Let's look.
William what? Bonin?
Bonin.
Yeah. William Bonin. So they're both American, but the connection that they have is a Canadian one. So that's interesting. Because They're American. They shouldn't have those recent Canadian roots. That guy's from Connecticut, and then she's from, I don't know what her real name is. Mary. I don't know if she come up under Mary Carol Bundy. Mary Carol Peters Bundy. Yeah, okay, got her. She's from Massachusetts. Connecticut and Massachusetts. You think the connection's gonna be there? It ends up being in French Canada.
Well,
So
it's
that was
not. It's not too far.
It's not, but that's not usually how these trees work. Like I've seen some Canadian killers with US lines. Also, that shouldn't happen. Like Canadians, like, when you're in Canada, you're pretty much in Canada. My people went into the States a bit and then went back up. So it would have been from Canada to the US and back to Canada. But for somebody who's Canadian, and then you have some lines that run into the US. So that's why we have some Canadian killers with Mayflower ties. It's just not common. And I tell you, I do trees all the time, and it's definitely not a common thing. But
Yeah.
interestingly, that these killers, there was another one I added recently who's mostly recent Irish Canadian, but most of it is recent Irish or recent something else. And then there's one line that runs through the US, goes through Pennsylvania, which gives them the German. And Pennsylvania seems to be a hotbed for a lot
Well,
of
remember we were talking last week. We were talking about the high rate of Germanic people that are serial killers. I mean, Pennsylvania is filled with that. It's filled with like a lot of German ancestry and Dutch. All that.
Which is a place that, like we were talking about last week, a lot of their ancestors came out of. Like it's either or, So we either have Germany or like the Netherlands, that area, Denmark, Switzerland, or Norway, Sweden, Finland, like that kind of what you were suggesting, like stoic,
cold, that no empathy.
It just, and that's what stood out to me, and that's exactly what I felt like when I was running into this. I'm like, think about Europeans. Russians tend to be, well, Russians are more stern, I think. They're not, it's not as much that they're cold. Eastern Europeans, they're like babushka, like just very, very stern, strong women. And then where you get with the German women, very like no emotion. Places like in Sweden and Switzerland, it's different. You know what I mean? Like a different vibe. So
yeah, they're just very reserved. They're not emotional. They're very stoic. They're not very open. You really can't tell what they're thinking.
Right.
So whereas you go down to Italy and you know exactly what they
French.
French too. They wear their emotions on their sleeves.
Right. Yeah.
Good.
And Irish are happy drunks. Have a beer. You know what I mean? Very happy people. Ireland is not something that's like a commonality with all these killers. So like if you're Irish, you're fine. If you're Scottish, you're fine.
Too much Irish guilt going on.
Probably. And then things that don't come up would be like turkey. Native American is not a commonality in these trees. Aside from the Mexican killers, they got that southern.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of surprised to see so many Mexican serial killers.
Oh, there's a few. I looked them up.
Yeah, I'm curious. I mean, because like I don't know how much we know about, because I know we had this one author on, Peter Vronsky, and he's written about serial killers. And he's spent some time over in Russia, and he's actually interviewed a couple serial killers there. I'm curious if they just kind of, you don't hear about these killers because they don't allow you to hear about them.
Right.
It's like they just don't.
Russia's got serial killers. Oh, that's fun.
Exactly. So they're either,
right.
they either put them up to the front line of whatever war there's at, or they just take care of them.
I'm just surprised to see so many women serial killers.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, in comparison, obviously, to men, there's nothing. But it was a good point that he made about the fact that they're killing their children or elderly and infirm, with very, very little exception for the ones who are luring men and then killing them. So like maybe
exactly.
So yeah, that's a very interesting observation.
When I was sitting there, because I was doing a quick research on some of these, just on like 10 of the ones that you send there, and it was like all the same. It was children. It was elderly, infirm, mentally disabled. And I'm like, what's a lot of? I'm gonna have to ask Laura about that. about
A
that.
lot of people would throw names at me, and I'm like, a nurse. I'm like, I don't care about nurses. A lot of them are nurses. Like, I
Yeah,
can't even put them all in here. Sometimes I'm just like, I don't want to do another nurse. Give me somebody good, you know?
I mean,
Because
because
like I don't research these people. People are always
Well,
asking me, what about
that's
this person?
scary.
There's a fine line between life and death.
Yeah.
You know.
They're with death all the time, so
Mhm.
they're comfortable with it, these nurses.
Yeah,
But,
and I
But
know
no
that-
one would suspect them.
Yeah,
because they're taking these are like caregivers, in both regards. They're caregivers to
Right.
their children or the nurse or the elderly, and they're killing them. So that's an interesting connection.
I know.
But
I'm gonna have to ask Laura if she's done any work on that, Laura Brand, to see because it's it's obviously there's a trend here. You know,
Mhm.
you can trend this.
Most of them are nurses.
and mothers.
Yeah.
You know, and like I
But
said,
I bet the ones that are nurses didn't have kids, I bet you.
But also, is that because of the time? You know, women didn't really have a lot of career opportunities in the early 1900s and the late 1880s. You know, they became nurses or teachers.
Right. Well, like Lizzie Borden was a teacher. Well, she volunteered, I think. But she killed her father. That's a whole other ball of wax. I think it was her and the uncle, to be honest. So,
yeah. But I just find it interesting that the fact that, you know, with men serial killers, like they stalk, they go out and they hunt and they prowl and they're predators and they get their victims. Most of them do that. You know, they don't know their victims at all. Whereas these women,
know them intimately.
yes, they know them. If it's not their child and they're a caregiver for them in the hospital, they're taking care of them. So they're seeing them on a daily basis.
Yeah.
It's to me, it's
Like,
more
look in their face and do it. Like, why?
exactly. It's way more calculating and premeditated. Where
Yeah.
as opposed to like a BTK he would stalk and he would bound and torture.
Never saw you know what I mean? Like the victims never saw them and had conversations and
No.
No, they didn't have like a relationship. That's the thing that's even more terrifying. Like the patient trusts their nurse and she's like killing them. I mean, that to me is worse than a serial, like someone who just randomly kills somebody.
Yeah, with nurses is crazy because there's this whole, there's this realm of, like you said, trust when you go into a hospital that, you're not going to be hurt. They're there to take care of you. And, but I hate hospitals, because you never know, you have no clue who's taking care of you.
And the same with like moms, like you're there to take care of your child. You're not there to kill your child.
Yeah.
That's so sad. That to me is the worst.
Yeah. Yeah. And
then how many other that we don't know about?
Well, that's the thing.
Exactly. I mean, how many of these things that happen that we don't know that are just listed as a natural cause or some sort of thing? Because there was that one nurse, documentary. It wasn't a female nurse, it was a male nurse based out of Jersey. They did a documentary and he had been killing patients for like years, and they kept on moving him to different hospitals because they didn't know what to do with him. And he had done it for years until one doctor kind of figured it out, who was friends with him. And he felt like he was doing them the hospital service and the patient a service by putting them out of his misery. But he had a pretty high body count. Eddie Redmayne was the British actor who played the killer, and it was really, and that guy's still alive. He's still around. He's in prison, but it happened in the area in New Jersey where I grew up in. So it was very crazy, very prevalent.
So one thing, like Susan Smith, now I haven't yet found killers that she's related to, but she's related to Amber Heard. I just thought that was very interesting. The Johnny Depp thing.
Yeah.
Oh.
People were saying that Amber Heard seems to be a little off balance, and kind of the same thing with Susan Smith. And I think their connection's a Scottish one, Ireland, an Irish connection. Very unusual to have a shared ancestor from, like in the 1700s. We're now closer.
Yeah.
Usually it's going to be farther out. It's going to be Massachusetts. It's going to be the ones that came over. But an Irish connection, like how one of the victims was related to Reese Witherspoon on the Scottish line. So I just found that to be very interesting. I didn't watch the Johnny Depp trial, but that's what people were kind of saying about. She might have been.
Yeah, I mean that one you got to throw it into the mix of just crazy on both sides here.
Mm-hmm.
One enlisted the other. and she didn't do. One had a great lawyer, the other one didn't have a great lawyer, and one just lost it on the stand, and one didn't. So it was like I think that whole situation was just a crazy melting pot
of toxicity.
And, yeah, I think.
All right. Some people probably shouldn't get married, but
Yeah, it was like a snow globe, this crazy snow globe. You just constantly get shook.
the fact that I believe she put her kids in the back seat of a car, locked them in, put the seatbelt on, and pushed it into a river or lake or whatever.
Susan Smith.
Susan Smith. Yeah, I still remember when that happened.
That was horrible.
She's trying to get out.
Oh, don't let her out. Don't let her out. Jeez.
Yeah, I mean that woman should never be out. I mean,
Oh.
She has good behavior in there, and she's.
Who cares?
I mean, how do you make?
She killed her children.
I don't even know how she can even.
What did they say why she did it? Like, it was the same reason as Diane Downs, right? Because she had a boyfriend that didn't want kids.
I can't remember the.
Yeah, it was something like that.
It was something very.
It was something like that. Like she had a guy that didn't want to deal with her kids, so she was like, "I'll just get rid of the kids."
And had jiggy with her man on the same thing. He didn't want kids. Like, so she killed her. Are you that desperate for love, like Diane Downs was as well? Diane Downs kills her children for a man that she just, like, yes, she'd had affairs with him and stuff. He didn't want to have anything to do with her other than some quick, but that was kind of his excuse. Well, I'm married and you have kids. So she kills her children just to be with a guy who didn't want to be with her in the first place.
Yeah.
Then gets pregnant during the trial. That girl was on Dr. Phil. She did do her DNA. I would have liked to saw that myself. And she did find out who her dad was. She didn't reveal the information. I'd like to know.
Yeah.
DNA matches with me, and I'll figure that out.
Yeah, no, according to this article, she can get parole after 30 years.
Oh boy.
I just don't. Life imprisonment with the possibility of parole after 30 years.
She made up some story too. It was so ridiculous. I remember that.
Well, they all do that. They cry on the microphone, like, "Oh, my child, where have they gone?"
No, she made up some big elaborate story about how some man took her kids, and she lived in the South, and she blamed a black man. It was horrible what she did.
And Downs did the same thing. She said I think she said he was black. I don't know. That he shot her. That's why she shot herself in the arm.
Yeah, no, she reported that her vehicle had been carjacked by a black man who drove away with her sons still inside. So that's the story she made up.
Very similar to what Diane Downs did, except so she said it was a carjacking as well, but that she managed to fight him off and he shot her in the arm. So she wrapped the towel around it and then was driving really slowly to get to the hospital while her kids were dying in the back. Yeah. Disgusting.
Yep. Oh, yeah. She said here. Her motivation was reportedly to facilitate a relationship with a local wealthy man named Tom Finley. Prior to the murders, he sent Smith a letter ending their relationship and expressing that he did not want children.
Who we're talking about, Diane Downs or Susan Smith? I'm so confused between the two.
Susan Smith. This is Susan Smith.
Same. It really is identical.
Is she related to Susan Smith, Diane Downs?
I didn't get to. I was going to get back to that. I'm looking for that because their MO is the same. I got to get back to Susan Smith's tree. I haven't finished it. I think she's probably got Southern roots. But what I'm noticing with the Southern roots, Virginia is Virginia. Forget it. They're in Virginia. They stayed in Virginia. But South Carolina, North Carolina, sometimes even Georgia, those lines end up going to Pennsylvania and to Massachusetts and sometimes to Virginia. Like we're going backwards to colonial times.
Yeah.
But I find that, and I didn't know, South Carolina and North Carolina was very much populated by the northern colonies, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts.
Yep.
I thought it would have been as close to Virginia. I figured it would have just been Virginians who settled that colony. It wasn't.
I mean, even to this day, a lot of people from the tri-state area, New York area, a lot of people migrated down to North Carolina.
Very unusual. I didn't think that would happen, but it happened.
They bypass Virginia and they go to North Carolina.
Yeah, it's true.
Really?
Yeah.
So strange. But I mean, they say that there's 13 colonies, but realistically in the beginning, there were like Virginia and Massachusetts. And then New York came along. And then from the colonies, then they would set like Maryland gets a colony, Delaware gets a colony, Georgia gets a colony, but later, not at first. So there were 13 eventually, but not in the beginning.
Yeah.
They all come from somewhere. So So that's what's, that's the interesting thing of where all these killer connections are. It's not Virginia. There's some, but it's really heavy in Massachusetts, Connecticut's, but
Well,
mostly
Massachusetts, you said Massachusetts and Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania. They all their ancestors run through there, so they'll have the side tie, the Massachusetts stuff. But I don't know. I have to go through, but almost all of them have ancestors that ran through Pennsylvania. And I did a search at one point. I'm looking because I'm going backwards. I'm going from now all the way back to the 1600s. And I see these places like Pennsylvania, I think Illinois, Kentucky. Remember, I saw a list of the states with the most serial killers. And those states that all these people had killer and like the killer's ancestors came through are in the top, whatever the top 10 are. I was like, that doesn't surprise me because think about it. Your ancestors run through a place, leave some descendants, and then some would move on. So it actually does make sense why these places would have the most serial killers per capita. So
That's crazy.
So fascinating. Wow.
I didn't, it's like when we started on this journey, I didn't think it was going to get this deep. It's deep, deadly roots, but yeah, the whole women thing is fascinating. And the fact that children and nurses and elderly people, I mean, I'm going to ask Laura about that. Maybe have her on at some point to kind of talk us through that, because it's definitely a trend. It's like
something to it.
That's
what I told you. There's patterns to people's trees and who they're related to, and so, and you're picking up on that, like the fact that the women are basically like and as you were saying too, Cindy, that it's the children, it's the people that can't help themselves that the women are killing, and the men are killing a whole different group of people.
I know, and it's a total different tactics too, and motivation.
But interesting that they all still share those same ancestors.
Yes.
That's interesting
the big
too.
groups, the Knapps, the Kimballs, the Fullers, and the fact that these women are also in that same cluster of killers, but yet they got two completely different MOs. I think there's an MAOA gene that they say passes from women, like female on the female line. That's not the case with this, but I heard that women inherit things differently anyway. But I mean, I don't think demons give a shit if you're a male or female. They're like, we don't care. We're
exactly.
We're jumping in your bloodline.
You're gonna jump in there anyway.
They'll take whatever they can get. They don't care. Whoever they can convince to do things that will come into agreement with them, they're on it. They don't care.
Yeah. Well, fascinating stuff. Thanks for putting this all together again. And we'll dive into something else next week.
Cool. Sounds good.
All right. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.